Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Strength Game Podcast. I'm your host, Nick O'Brien, and this is episode number 144. The Strength Game is a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing all things physical culture with the coaches, athletes, iron enthusiasts, and experts deeply embedded in the strength game on both sides of the profession, both as coaches and as competitive athletes. I want to thank everyone who has liked, shared, and commented on the show, who has subscribed and continues to listen after all these years. All your support allows us to continue to bring on expert guests and highlight more individuals in the strength game, just like our guest today. I also want to take this time to thank our sponsors. Owned and operated by active lifters, Cerberus Strength is trusted by the top strength sport athletes and lifters in the world. Cerberus's wide range of products are made by athletes for athletes, truly living up to its moniker, made by the strong for the strong. From sandbags, training gear and supplements to lifting straps, knee sleeves, and much more, Cerberus Strength provides the highest quality strength products on the market, designed and manufactured to help you defeat, destroy, and devour your competition. So if you're in the market for the highest quality strength conditioning gear and strongman equipment, be sure to use promo code strength_game at checkout to receive 10% off your next order at cerberusstrength.com. Also want to thank our sponsor, Samson. Family owned and operated since 1976, Samson Equipment has been specializing in full turnkey weight room buildouts from planning to installation. Based in Las Cruces, New Mexico, Samson provides professional weight room solutions for those looking to lead the way in advancing our strength conditioning profession. Coaches have relied on Samson as their top resource for all their weight room renovations because they provide the finest material and design, product customization, and the most reputable customer service in the business. If you're in the market for elite level strength equipment, weight room renovations, or upgrades, be sure to check out samsonequipment.com to see how Samson has been delivering clients a long-lasting yet affordable product for over 4 decades. Also want to thank our sponsor, Sport Kilt. Sport Kilt is the very first company to begin making casual kilts in the USA. Taking the traditional kilt concept, they crafted a casual kilt using modern materials that is perfect for Highland athletes and casual kilt aficionados alike. Sport Kilt offers an option for people looking for a tartan plaid kilt that is less expensive, comfortable, lighter, and durable, yet machine washable. So make the ultimate Celtic statement by checking out the full selection of kilts and stylish kilt accessories at sportkilt.com. And be sure to use promo code TSG to save at checkout. And in this week's episode, I am joined by Ken Nowicki. Ken is the owner and CEO of Cerberus Strength USA, the American brand of the Scottish company of the same name, which strives to provide supportive equipment of the highest possible quality to not only high-level athletes in strength sports, but also the recreational athlete too. Attaining a master's degree in chemical and process engineering, Nowicki not only shifted gears out of a career in oil, but simultaneously emigrated from Scotland to the USA to begin a career in sports therapy in 2013. He interned at Teamwork Therapy and Sports Performance while attending school for a certificate in massage therapy at the Massage Therapy Institute of Colorado. While at Teamwork Therapy, he worked with an extensive range of patients from general public suffering from back pain all the way to World's Strongest Man winners in an attempt to avoid injury and maximize performance. Things shifted again in 2014 when the Cerberus Strength began releasing small batches of products in the USA. Since that time, Nowicki has been at the helm of Cerberus Strength USA and has seen the company continue to grow year upon year and gain large amounts of exposure within the strength community. In addition to managing the responsibilities of an owner and CEO of the company, he is a big presence in the strength sport and strongman community. He's been putting out content through Cerberus Strength in the form of educational articles and videos as well as being the host of the Iron Edge podcast. Nowicki has been involved with strongman and strength sports as a competitor since 2006 and has competed on some of the biggest stages in professional strongman. Over the course of his career, he has traveled internationally, representing his home country with the sport, winning multiple titles and finishing on the podium at some of the biggest events in strongman, to include being crowned Scotland's strongest man 4 times, 2011 UK's junior strongest man, and UK's strongest man runner-up, and finishing seventh at Amateur World Championships in 2012, amongst other accolades. He's still an avid lifter and enjoys snowboarding and hiking when he's not training in the weight room. Like I said, I'm excited to have him on the show today. So, with all that said, let's get in the game with Coach Ken Nowicki. What's going on, everybody? Today, I'm really excited. We've got Ken Nowicki on the show. I'm stoked because you've been the sponsor for this show for almost the 5 years. Every single episode with Cerberus Strength USA. So, good friend, like strongman, entrepreneur, owner of Cerberus Strength, and CEO of USA. Host of the Iron Edge podcast. Like, I'm going to let you talk now, but I want to thank you before we even get going because I'm excited to have you on today, man.
No, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for taking the time and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. Like I said, you guys and yourself and like the whole company have been a great sponsor of the show forever. So I'm excited to kind of, one, thank you by getting you on the show, but also two, really dive into the company, you as an athlete, you as an entrepreneur and businessman, and everything that you've been doing to get going. But let's kind of take it back to like that athlete side.
Yep.
How did you really kind of get started competing, getting really involved in strongman up until the point of like what your training looks like nowadays?
Yeah. I mean, strongman sort of, I don't want to say it fell in my lap, but it sort of did. Um, like I started lifting just because I was a big dude. I was a big kid. Um, I can't remember. I'd have to sit and do like all the math for the conversion, but like growing up in Scotland, we do the weight, like we do weight in stones and pounds, you know? So stone is 14 pounds. Um, so basically growing up every year of my age, like when I was 12 years old, I was 12 stone. When I was 14, I was 14 stone. And like 16 and a half is like 231. So, at 16 years old, I'm, you know, 230 pounds. So I was a big kid, graduated high school, 265, and I started lifting weights because I did Schwarzenegger films, wrestling. This, growing up with, I mean, like a lot of 90s kids, we grew up with that sort of role model, so to speak, on the TV screen, the movie screen, or whatever. And yeah, I was lifting. I went to a new gym when I was like I lied about my age to get into like the community gym. So I got in there at like I think 15 and a half. You had to be 16. And I don't know, like a year and a half later, I start going to this gym, maybe an hour away from where I stayed, and it was a bodybuilding gym, really small place. I don't know, maybe 800 square feet. But some of the best bodybuilders in Scotland were training there, and you had some strongmen and powerlifters and all that sort of stuff. And I'd gone to watch strongman contest the year before. It was like a fundraiser for do you remember that tsunami? It was like 2004 or 2000, Christmas 2003, I think it was. There was a big tsunami in like Sri Lanka and all that sort of stuff. So they ran a fundraiser for that in 2005, and then I went and competed in that in 2006, like, week before my 18th birthday. And it was just like a whatever, just a fun thing. But I took to it instantly. Like I was beating guys in their 30s and all this sort of stuff at 17. And I'd only ever seen Strongman on TV at Christmas, you know? And yeah, just took to it like a duck to water. It was like I never played team sports growing up and all that sort of stuff. I was like looking back, like I was popular enough, but I wasn't in the popular crowd. I wasn't in like the geek crowd, very much in the middle. And yeah, dude, like that self-reliance is just something that was always like that was just me. I didn't really like I moved to my own drum. I worked to the beat of my own drum. And so when I started strumming, it was like this is it. And yeah, like I did that, and then I competed in it the next year, and then I did like another smaller contest, and then after that, it was like qualifier for Scotland's Strongest Man. I'm trying to think how old I was. My first Scotland, so I'd have been like 19, qualified for Scotland's Strongest Man, went and competed there. Same year, competed UK Strongest Man, and then just started going from there, and just started going up and up, and ended up competing in Britain's and Europe's, and was a tester at World's Strongest Man, competed at the Arnold Amateurs, and a bunch of Giants Live contests, and yeah, dude, it just became everything I did.
No, that's awesome. It's cool to see just how it all started and then being like getting involved more and more, especially like early in those 90s, like you talked about, the exposure to strongman, like you
Yeah,
most people saw it on TV or maybe you like caught a glimpse of it like in a magazine or like you fell into kind of one of those old dungy gyms that
yeah.
someone maybe was training it or maybe there was like one implement that either was in the corner never getting used or was always getting used. You never know. And then it just kind of like starts popping up more and more. And
Yeah.
then once you get involved in the community,
Oh yeah, like
it's
I
so
had
much easier to
no idea
find.
about the community. Like for me, like I would watch it every year, loved watching it. Um, and I had no idea that there was a community, even, on my doorstep. And then when you start thinking about all the other stuff, like the Dinnie stones and Inverstone and all those Scottish testing stones, like I was 17, um, lifting the Dinnie stones, and I was the youngest on record for a long, long time. Um, but I think this with Strongman, it gave me, like I did it all through university, college, all that sort of stuff. And I think it actually helped me mo just develop as a young man. It gave me something to really like focus on, and it kept me out of trouble. When a lot of the people in my year at school were out drinking at the park on a Friday night, I was in the gym. Same with college. Like I wasn't in a nightclub. Drinking age in Scotland's 18. I wasn't in a nightclub until I was like 21 and a half, almost 22, because everything was strongman. It would be a case of go to college during the day, train at night, and then if I wasn't training that night, I'm at home just trying to recover.
Yeah, it's such a good outlet. Like any strength sport, like strongman, and like obviously too, like you talked about the self-reliance and just kind of picking it up yourself, and the community kind of came second, but the community is always there. It's such a good thing to like be able to focus on, and it's positive, and it has so many like good carryover effects to not just like your physical being, but like your life and your well-being. And obviously, like that kept you focused in school and everything. And I mean, that carried you through university because you've got, for being the owner of the company and like getting involved in professional strongman and kind of how your career tilted, like you got a pretty intensive master's degree before you
Yeah.
kind of shifted focus. So like, do you think without strongman it would have been a different story? Like, do you think you would actually like gone through that master's degree and like, or like, is it really something that kind of kept you on that path?
No, so for me, so I have a master's in chemical and process engineering. Um, and for me, like I was actually looking at doing like physical therapy. Um, and then I started looking at the job market in the UK at that point in time. And state healthcare, I was sitting looking at it like, okay, you can't, from what at least the reading I was doing at that point in time, it was like you can't go into private practice until you've done a certain amount within the NHS. So like, okay, well, what does that look like? It's it's nothing crazy. It's like handing walking sticks out to old people, doing little bits and pieces of rehab, and it didn't interest me. And then I started thinking about the money side of it, and I'm like, man, there's not exactly an income here. And for me, like I was really, really good at like sciences. I was really good with numbers. My dad, he had a PhD in chemistry, and then he actually did a distance learning degree for a bachelor's in chemical engineering while working full time at BP, with some high level projects there. So it was just like it made sense to me, and I walked into that degree, and honestly, like, wasn't that difficult. There was some classes that I struggled with, but for the majority of it, it was like click, 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 click. It was like it just happened. Um, and I actually halfway through my degree, my dad passed from leukemia, and that's when I was like, okay, what do I want my life to be? And I really started questioning it. Um, because at that point I wasn't really enjoying the degree. But the nice thing in the UK is that there's no, especially in Scotland at the time, um, you didn't pay to go to college. If you were a Scottish resident and you went to a Scottish university, you weren't paying anything. Um, so the only thing I was paying was accommodation and living expenses. Um, so I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep it going. I've got 2 years left, finish it out. Even if I'd never use the degree, which I haven't, um, it's a great thing to have on your resume. You showing that you can be there for 5 years and do this highly intensive thing. And I don't think it would have changed. I don't think strongman put me through the degree. I think what it did is it let me time manage a lot better. And it's funny because I think my time management now that I'm not competing is actually probably worse than it was previously because it's not, there's almost like the oh shit, you're running out of time is it doesn't feel like it's there anymore. Um, and that's where now I'm back training a bit harder. I'm trying to redevelop that balance of work work crazy during the day and then come in and get a really, really good session in it in the late afternoon, early evening, and then go home and start sort of chilling out at that point. Um, but yeah, dude, like strongman just strongman and then that degree just sort of clicked for me. It was just and I never thought about it until my dad passed of really what I wanted life to look like. Um, and at that point, I was like, yeah, okay, I don't want to go into oil. My dad worked in oil. I saw the sort of toll that it took on him from a stress perspective. And I was like, okay, I don't know what I want to do, but let's finish this and then we'll sort of go from there.
Yeah, no, that's a big deal. I mean, a life change like that, like losing your dad, having him pass away, like that thought process has got to be very difficult to kind of like do, especially like when he's already doing that job and you can kind of see, but being able to pivot and being smart enough like in that moment also to understand that like I don't know what I want to do, but like I need to kind of like finish this and have this in my back pocket in the event whatever I choose doesn't pan out. Like that's great advice too for a lot of college athletes because I think it's probably part of the problem with like this new NIL stuff and them jumping around all the time. Like I don't even know what degree you're going to get at this point when you're just going to play. Like they'll college in a lot of aspects is depending on what your degree is, like can be just a piece of paper, but it still shows that like you can show up and you have time management skills, like you
Well,
can do the tasks that you're delegated to do and like complete things and complete exams, whatever it is.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, there's a lot more to it, and that's awesome for you to be able to pivot and find something that like you really found
yeah.
passionate yourself.
I mean, I think that's the problem with a lot of it these days. Is a lot of people just look at like, okay, what's this piece of paper, and and they almost feel. I think a lot of kids these days, and I definitely felt like this for a while, was or a case of they almost feel like, okay, I'm getting this degree in whatever. For me, it was chemical engineering. You got mechanical, electrical, accounting, whatever it is. You're pigeonholing yourself into this job for the rest of your life, and excuse me, that's not the case. It's simply, you're developing that skill set, but there's a hell of a lot of transferable skills within all these degrees. Like chemical engineering is a lot of numbers. I'm pretty sure I can go in and figure out an accounting job if I really want to do something like that. But it's like you said, it's showing that you can actually show up and put the effort in for a sustained period of time and not just get bored with it. And I think that's, social media wasn't really a thing when I was in college. And I wonder now, like, okay, like if I was going to college now, what would my life look like? Like the phone was, so different back then, 20 years ago. And it's like, I think, I think, uh, I think life would look a hell of a lot different for me if I was, 18 or 19 now than back then.
Yeah, and I think now too, like it's overcorrection too with social media and everything, where everybody is now instead of pigeonholing themselves to something where like, hey, I'm going to be in this career path for 40 years, I'm going to retire here, I'm going to get my watch. Like it's what I started with. There's too much effort and like too much a big of a step back for me to pivot and do anything else. Like I just need to stay at this job. Now people are just jumping like willy-nilly from everything, and they never invest enough time in one thing for the payoff to actually happen, which
Well,
is which is
I
a
think it's with,
problem.
yeah, I think it's with every facet of life now where, you know, I'm not saying everyone has this outlook, but I think it's very difficult not to have the outlook of, oh, the grass is greener, you know? Well, XYZ sucks, like, is crappy in my life right now, whether it's work, relationship, training, whatever. Oh, that looks better over there. Let me go and see what that's going on, and you can't really put effort into stuff when you're always looking for the next best thing.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point too, because at that point in time, like you're not even really fully invested in what you're doing. You're just looking to kind of jump ship and find something better. And you never know like if that's going to be the one thing that pans out. But like you
Mhm.
did yourself, like you had kind of something on the back burner and you could always rely back on that. But you said it yourself too, like the skills that you develop like with that original career path are transferable skills. And a lot of the stuff you said too, like time management, like being able to kind of like prepare for like a culminating task, show up, like do the work, put the effort in, like a lot of that stuff, like you could say that for any job. You could say that for
Yeah.
strongman and for training too. Like you need
And
to
that's why
show
I
up, put
think
the
it did
effort
me
in.
so well. I think that's why it fit me so well. Because like going back to the point of like rely on myself, there's reliance on yourself, but there was also a part of it where like you learning to like I had training partners, you know, and you're building that team mentality at the same time. So it's a very interesting sport where you can build these tr like team dynamics, but then the buck stops with you as well, you know?
Yeah, that's always the interesting part when it comes to that. And I think a lot of people like dealing with college athletics for as long as I have, a lot of the sports that like maybe aren't wrestling or swimming or track and field in a lot of aspects, they don't really know and understand like the difference between like a training partner and a teammate and then like what that individual aspect looks like because at the end of the day you're going to be graded off yourself. Like you might be scored on like a team level, and like that's how you're going to be rewarded, or like
Yeah.
the rankings are going to come out. At the end of the day, like the amount of work you put in is individual to you. So you can have the greatest training partners or the worst training partners in the world. But like you said, the buck stops with you. And a lot of athletes can learn from those individual sports and strength sports, especially to kind of bolster what they're doing in their team sport career.
Yeah, and I agree, man. It's funny that we're talking about this because I was sitting in a restaurant the other day just getting a bite to eat before going home. And across like the booth next to me, there was a dad, a mum. So the dad's like facing me, and then the mother and her son, who was 15, were facing the other way. And the dad's talking about, I guess, the kid that plays hockey, boarding school up here, and I think it was his first or second week here. And the dad was like, "No, hey, I ain't gonna bullshit you. Here's what happened. Like you guys were playing fantastic, blah blah blah, blah, and then you got tired, and that's why they beat you because you couldn't keep it up." And I was just sitting thinking about it, and it's like the dad was talking about like how like oh like you expected all these guys to be good to go, and the team dynamic to just sort of click, and you're one, so to speak. And then I started thinking about it, like, with us having my wife and I we're expecting, um, actually, I don't know if I should say that. We don't really told everyone publicly. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We can bleep that. Um, but I was sitting listening to it, and the I started thinking about it more, and I'm like, there's a part of it where it's like with a team sport, if you've got a good group of guys around you, like, and then this is okay. This is why I'm guessing, at least I should say that, because I was never in this position. But if like the effort you put in uh, as an individual can raise the team, because if that one person starts, hey, our conditioning sucked, I'm gonna go and run fucking hills, and I'm gonna let these guys see me running hills, and then they see me getting better. Now is it a case of those guys don't want me to be better than them, so now we're all running hills. I think that's where you know strongman is as well, from a perspective of we had massive training crews at time. Like my core, there was three of us at our core, but we would go to different gyms as well. Like every single week, we were driving an hour and a half to different gyms, and sometimes there would be a group of 15 of us, and it was like, yep, I'm not letting any of these guys beat me. And obviously they did, but you're trying to level it up every single time. And I think that's where the team aspect of strongman comes into it as well.
Yeah, that team atmosphere is so cool. And I think a lot of people don't realize the community that's involved around like those strength sports. And it's a weird dynamic where even if you're not in the same weight class, you're not training for the same
Yep,
events or same competition coming up, like having training partners around to push you and critique you and kind of be your coach and like hold you accountable. At the end of the day, like whether you take their advice or not, or like whether or not you choose to kind of like drop your ego and listen to someone that maybe is really not as good as you in an event or better than you at an event or like beat you in the last competition, like
yep,
everybody's out for the best interest of just the sport and the community. And like whoever's the best that day is going to win. It doesn't matter. Like you're not
yep,
going to self-sabotage anyone. You're only going to sabotage yourself, and it, your effort is based off yourself. So it's
yeah.
a really cool atmosphere. Let's just
I
put it
think
that way.
the ego, trying to take the ego out of training, especially within a crew environment, I think that's huge because my outlook was always like, hey, Joe Bloggs is coming in, it's his first session. I would always like, okay, this is how we're doing it. And then I would watch to see, do they do it like I did it, or are they doing something different? And if they're doing it different, is it more economical? Is it an easier way to do something or whatever? And I remember being a world's strongest man in 2014. I was a tester around LA, and I was watching some of these guys who are at world's strongest man, but I've competed with them before, and the way they're picking up the sandbag, and I'm like, hey, do it this way, try it this way. And he's like, holy shit, that's like so much faster. Like, yeah, it's just little stuff. And some people would listen, and other people would, nope, I know what I'm doing. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. But I think taking the ego, like for me, I always had the outlook that no matter if I went to a contest and I got a perfect score, won every single event, 10 out of 10, every single event, and nobody touched me all day long. If I couldn't take something positive away from that competition, then I've done myself a disservice. Then I've failed myself. That was always my outlook.
Yeah, that's such a good way to look at it too, because a lot of times you can go in a competition and based off of where it is, or even if it's just a training session too, like winning isn't the ultimate thing because if you go in and everybody else shits the bed that day and you like clean slate every single event you win and then you're on the podium, like is it really like a good win for your training? Is it a good win for your career? Or
Yep.
did everybody else just not do well? Like I would rather go in and post PRs or give my best effort, do everything I can despite whatever the circumstances are, and come in dead fucking last.
Yep.
But know that I did everything possible. And then, all right, now I know exactly what to focus on next time. I know exactly what I want to do in my programming leading into the next competition because you're always just seeking development and
Yep.
progress.
The interesting thing for me was that as soon as I moved stateside and I started competing less, because it was less accessible here, my competition was like I went down. Like my competition experience got worse. Like when I was competing at home in the UK, I'm trying to think. What year was this? This would have been like 2012 probably, 20, I think. Like I competed like 13, 14 days out of the year. And some of them, it wasn't like single contests. Some of those were, 2-day events, 3-day events. Like I'd competed at UK Strongest Man in 2011. Yeah, 2011. I It was in an 8-day period. I competed out 4 days. Actually, no, 5 days. I worked did I work the Saturday night? Either way, I flew to Ireland and I competed this Sunday. I got third there, and then flew back to Scotland on the Monday. Spent Tuesday getting ready for UK's Strongest Man, like packing and doing laundry stuff. Flew to Ireland again on Wednesday. Competed at UK's Strongest Man on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And got second to Eddie. Then competed in the junior contest because I was just turned 21 on the Sunday and won that. And then I helped crew the Masters on the Monday. Flew to London, got my visa for World's Strongest Man on the Tuesday. Like heavy, and like I became so robotic when I competed that often. It was ridiculous. I knew everything. I knew exactly how I was going to react to anything, whether it was first event nerves, anything. And it was wild. And that was like this part of me was like, man, I wish I'd been in Europe where I could have gone to like SCL and competed every single weekend in Europe. Because I wonder what would have like where my career would have been. But obviously the other side of the coin is that you're never going to make $1 million, from strongman. I mean, shit, I haven't made $1 million yet, but you're never going to make big money from that. So like, obviously, I don't look at it from a negative standpoint. It intrigues me. Like I was so robotic when I was competing in those like high level competitions all the time that it intrigues me as to what could have been type of thing, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. Like being that frequent, like in competition and like being accustomed to that and always like knowing what those nerves feel like, knowing how to prepare the right way, just basically knowing how to dial in
Yeah.
your
It was funny,
training
like,
leading up to it is
well, that's
different.
the other thing. Like, yeah, like the training side of stuff was like we were basically just prepping for competition. It was just like tune-ups throughout the competition season. It was just tune-ups. Like, okay, hey, you got this event. Excuse me, you got this event coming up. How many sessions you need to tune up for that? Okay, and I know the basics. 1 or 2 sessions just to feel the implement, feel good again. Okay, cool, good to go. The funny thing for me was like I remember going to a competition when one of my buddies told me this afterwards that um well, 2 points. First, there was another guy. I was like he and I went back and forth a lot of the time. Um, in terms of like, individual events, and I would typically come out on top. And I got to the point where I walked into a competition. He was inside. My buddy walked in first, and he was sitting, standing, talking to this guy. And as soon as I walked in, the guy like his demeanor instantly dropped. I was like, oh, that's like really like that dynamic and that behavior is super interesting to me. And then apparently there was another guy at that show said something about my bag, my kit bag, about like, oh, Ken's got everything in that fucking thing. And my buddy at the time, or not, like he's still a friend. I guess he turned to him. He goes, "Yep," and he knows exactly the right time to use every single piece of equipment in that bag, and that's why he wins. I was like, okay, that's cool, but that's where it came to. Like, it became like no matter the event, no matter the competition, I knew all these little things because I was getting so much experience on a higher level. Even stuff like I was the only guy wearing gloves on like sandbag medleys and stuff like that, simply because I saw other guys at top level doing it. And I was like, hey, let me find those gloves online, buy them, and let me see if it does. I was like, oh, this gives me like I can rip it off the ground faster like this. It's not much, it's a couple seconds, not tons, but it helps. And it was just so interesting that nobody else was really open to it. I think that's where the engineering degree really, really helped me from an athletic standpoint.
Oh yeah. I mean, because a lot of people have that fixed mindset of what they know, like what they think is right is always going to be right. And like
Yep.
engineering is all about creativity and like if it works, you could probably make it better at some point in time too.
Yeah.
There's always a different creative way to kind of work around to, I mean, those seconds, like we've seen competitions where like milliseconds, like they got to go back to
Oh
a
God. Yeah.
thousandth of a second for it to
Yep.
count.
Hmm.
So no, that's a great way to do it. And like obviously like having that much competition, like you're always ready. You're just kind of tuning up
Yes.
and you're using some of maybe the lower level competitions, if you even want to call it, or local ones as just like a higher intensity training session. Because that's and I know that feeling too of like not feeling like there's a lot of competition around. Because when I moved to California, like strongman was so divided. If it wasn't in like San Diego, LA, like it wasn't up until Sacramento. And like just being in athletics, like at the collegiate level, if I missed a competition that I was preparing for like 5 months out when the sign up happened, and like, oh, a game got changed or I have something that day I can't go to it. I was like, oh, 5 months of training is gone because like I was trained specifically for these things, and there's not another competition within like 8 hours
Yep.
for another couple months. And that's why Highland Games, like I started getting more involved, and it was the same thing for you. Like I think obviously COVID ruined it, but one year I had 18 competitions lined up
Yeah.
for Highland Games. And I started like checking them off and I was like, "Oh, I'm good at this. Like I need to work on this." Like it just became like really intense training sessions and I knew there was a couple peak ones that I wanted to be my best at, but I went
Yep.
into some competitions like, "Hey, I just want to do really good at Braemar today." Like
Yep.
that's my
Yep.
goal. Everything else like if I can be in like the 80s, 90 percentile of what I normally do and like build my minimums up,
Hmm.
then I can really start to push it on some other things and
Yep.
use it as a training session against high competition. That's what you want to do. You don't want to go against like the easiest people and like
Oh yeah, I
kind of like
agree.
that one guy like shudder when you walk in the door because they're thinking that it's going to be like a throwaway win for them. You want the highest people there. You want as much pressure because you guys are going to rack and stack and go against each other, and it's going to make the best competition for the audience. It's going to make the best training, the best overall like competitiveness between you guys when you're at that level. That's what you want to do. That's what competitors want to do all the time.
Yep. No,
Definitely.
that's the thing. Like for me, it became like the lower level contest became training sessions, and then that's why I try and sort of say to athletes just starting out, like more starting out, and they're like, "Oh well, what's the advice that you would give me?" I'm like, "Compete as much as you possibly can, because that's where you will actually like develop, you know?"
Yeah, and don't worry about what the result is. Like chase progress, not like
Mhm.
the podium at that point in
Exactly.
time. Like, because obviously like strongman and like when you're looking at the top tier guys, like you competed for a long time, but and it's no discredit against you. There's some guys that like come out just like you did when you picked up the Denny Stones at that age. There's some guys that are probably doing it at like 13 at this
Yep.
point in time, and there's going to be some freaks. So it takes a while for you to get up at that stage. It takes a while for some people's size to get to 350, 400 plus
Oh yeah.
pounds to actually
Yep.
compete like with the top 1%. So yeah, progress is your number one thing if you really want to get to the top.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Hey, so how did that shift a little bit now? Because not competing like internationally and nationally quite as much, but like still really heavily involved in strongman. And I know you do a lot of other stuff outdoors, like being up in the mountains over there and like getting skiing done and like snowboarding
Yep.
as much as possible. But like what's training kind of shifted like for you and how do you still kind of incorporate strongman? Because a lot of people I think only see it as you're either a competitor or you're not. But like you can add strongman movements and like some of those
Oh
like
yeah. I mean, you can add it all in. If I'm honest, I'm not doing tons of strongman stuff nowadays. I'll add in like strict log out of the rack and stuff like that just because it feels better for me on like my shoulders. Like I've got some like a bunch of different injuries and stuff like that just from years of beating the shit out of myself. Um, but I got to the point where like I went through a couple of stages in my career where it became a job and I didn't enjoy what I was doing even remotely. Um, and I was like, nope, let me excuse me, let me start coming back and trying to compete and getting high level again type of thing. And yeah, dude, like I was prepping for OSG. This would have been 2021. I was like, God, I'm trying to think. I would have been like 4 months into dating my now wife. And I went and did a local competition. First event, detached my proximal bicep. And I'm just like, fucking seriously? Like this is supposed to be a small, like, and it was light. It was like doing like a 150 pound keg press. I think I was 150 or 200 pounds, nothing crazy heavy. And I was just like, it's getting tiresome. It's getting tiresome to keep getting hurt. And I started realizing a little bit for me, like what I was sort of missing out on. Like when her and I first started dating, I'd said to her, like, oh, yeah, I used to live in Colorado. She's like, oh, you snowboard, right? Like, yeah, I snowboarded, snowboarded as a kid and blah, blah, blah. Skied, snowboarded in Scotland, did a lot in Europe and stuff like that. She goes, well, where did you ride in Colorado? And I was like, I didn't. It was everything was strongman, and she couldn't believe it. She was like, "What the hell? Like, what do you mean you never hiked or snowboarded in Colorado?" I was like, "Didn't do it. Every weekend was strongman, rain or shine." And I sort of started realizing a little bit of like what I was missing out from, and getting older and my body's sort of starting to break down a bit more. Um, So now training wise, like I still do I do power building essentially. I have like a primary movement that I do. So like, right now, like try and train it 4 days a week typically, and it's like two upper, two lower. So I'll do like a flat bench, on day one, and then day two is like a deadlift variation. Three is like a strict press overhead typically, and then I'll do like a squat variation on day four. And I basically have my primary mover for like 5 by 5, 5 6s or whatever. Keep it quite fast paced, and then after that primary mover, everything's reps. You know, 8 to 10s, 12 to 15s, 10 to 12s, whatever, and it's all just trying to add some muscle and feel a bit more athletic these days. But I mean, I'm still doing all the plyometric work, and I still have sandbags in here that will get after it with conditioning stuff or whatever with that. Farmers carries and suitcase carries and all that sort of stuff. So I think Strongman plugs in very, very well for like overall functionality of strength expression. And it's just trying to figure out where it sort of fits in your wheelhouse for like what you want to do. Like we hike a bunch, more so like, spring, fall time. We'll ski or we'll snowboard and stuff like that in winter. But we start doing stuff where we do like we'll take our boards to the local mountain and we'll hike up the trails and then we'll snowboard down. Or we did like a split boarding thing last year where it's like, board splits in two, you put it on as skis and you hike up the mountain and you snowboard back down. And it's just different things. And it's like I'm enjoying that sort of stuff because it's a new challenge. It's the stuff that I didn't remotely even approach before. So now it's a case of for me now, they've been a bit longer in the tooth. It's trying to keep my body. I don't, I don't need to run with 1,000 pounds anymore. I know, like, if I put the effort in, I could get back to that level. But I'm enjoying, for like the first time in my life, actually feeling, for the most part, pretty good on a daily basis. But still being able to come in here and for a training session and really actually like tap into that mindset again and sort of get after it.
Yeah, it's definitely different, but like you found a new challenge. And at some point in time, like, yeah, strongman, you could tailor it to what fits some of the other hobbies you got going on and activities and everything. And there's a lot of carryover effects, but yeah, you gotta realize at some point in time, like competing at that high level, like it has its drawbacks to injuries, it has its drawbacks to time commitment and everything.
Yeah.
And you have so many other kind of competing factors nowadays
Yeah.
that like I get that same feeling a lot of times. Like I don't want training. I don't want like gearing up for a competition to feel like a job. I want it to be like it was originally, where I had no other
Yeah.
stress going on. It was like I'm doing like, yeah, it might seem like a lot of work to like meal prep and like go to sleep at this time, do this recovery, all these things and like dial it in perfectly, but that was really enjoyable. It becomes a little bit more stressful when you have all these other things to like navigate around. And you know, at the end of the day, like you said, you're not making $1 million
Yeah.
competing in strongman. So like you're taking a hobby that you really used to enjoy a lot and you're putting it into things that could, one, financially probably ruin you, like could kind of put a crowbar between your family life and everything too. So it's
I think
it's
the
got
big
it's got to be
thing,
dialed down a little bit now.
the big thing for me, I think, when I actually sit and really analyze a lot of it, a lot of my career, is, I started at 17, call it 18 pretty much. And, 3 years later, my dad's, passed. He passed like 8 weeks after I turned 21. And if I'm honest, probably a lot of my strongman career was using the sport as a coping mechanism. If I'm completely bluntly honest, that's probably what it was, because it allowed me to put focus into this one thing that I could control. Yeah, okay, I was training with other guys and all that sort of stuff, but at the end of the day, like if I got up and did the meal prep, if I got up and did the rehab work or the conditioning work or whatever I had to do, that was on me. And I did it with no no complaint because I was able to control every part of it. And then now I look at it and I think about it more now and I'm like, okay, well, why does it feel less important, so to speak? Like why this why obviously take away the physical impact it has on the body. Like why do I struggle to get into that mindset to go in and absolutely like fucking crush it and pull big deadlifts and want to go and run with 1,000 pounds and yada yada yada. And I honestly think it's because there's other things in my life now that actually make me feel whole and good about myself and have some sort of self-worth and all that sort of stuff. And I think a lot of strongman was putting those things, like replacing those holes that I'd felt. Um, do I regret it? No, not one bit, because it actually developed me more personally than probably anything else in my life. Um, but I think that's why now I can come in the gym and I can have a good training session and feel accomplished, but it doesn't have to be, and it took me a long, long, long time to get here. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I used to come in and be like, well, fuck, I'm only deadlifting 500 pounds. Shit, like this sucks. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. When you really think about it, like there's guys who train their entire life to pull 4 plates, you know, and I can do it on any day of the week. And like that sort of rewiring is that's been sort of key to me actually like chilling out, I guess, and actually being able to enjoy being in the gym because I'd forced it for years where I wasn't enjoying being in the gym and I just put everything back to, well, this is what I used to do. This is what I used to do, and it sucked. So now for everything to come full circle and feel, all these other things, as well as being able to train intently or intensely, and I guess intently, um, it's nice. It's a nice place to be.
No, that's fantastic to hear. And I think there's a lot of people that have been in that situation. I know I found myself in that situation before, and people fall in and out of like love for training or like just kind of as you have used training as a way to like cope with like bad times or like feel like their life is in shambles or like something's not going their way. It's a great release. It's a great way to like put effort in, like get nice benefits like physiologically back for yourself and feel like you have some sort of control over something and you can control those things. You can control what you eat, you can control when you go to sleep, you can control your training, like and you can control the effort you put in and that's gratifying and that's something that a lot of people I think are missing out on and you kind of to your point too, exactly what you said, like you found something that replaced and probably I undoubtedly I would say like replaced it even more, like and doubled or tripled um, the love that you had for training, and you put something else in its place, and you put all your
Mhm.
time and effort and energy into that. And it's not like training goes away. It's to your point
No.
too. Like it's just on the back burner, and it's not the main priority. It aids in all the other things that you're doing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, excuse me. I think that, like, because I still like I work with a coach for diet, and like I'm leaning out and all that sort of stuff right now, and that's the plan. And that's like I think, um, the things that we do physically should, in my opinion, if you're not competing, at least, when you're competing, it should be, hey, everything I do, whether it's meal prep, conditioning, recovery, blah blah blah, everything is for this goal. Well, what's the goal now? The goal is to live a, long, functional, healthy life where I can get up and hike, no problem with my wife, and I'm not, half dead after 5 miles, even though she takes me on some wild stuff at times. Or I can go and snowboard all day, no problem, or I can whatever. And that's, I think, where it needs to be, that the training should also, like, I'll never stop training. I love to train, and I like to have a love back for it is super important to me, at least. And now it's just a case of, now I get to use training to actually target specific other goals that I wasn't even remotely approaching previously.
Yeah, you're training for life at that point too, and
Yeah,
you're ready for anything, which is the kind of cool part because like you have to be really selfish. You have to be like kind of like horse blinders on if you want to be really successful and you want to be the top of any sport or any venture. Like you have to be disciplined with that. And a lot of things like when you're prioritizing one like mission, other things have to like fall at the wayside. And then your
yeah,
priorities shift as you get older and everything as well. And now you can use training to benefit everything within your life and be able to say yes to anything at any point in time versus like probably after a super heavy training session and like whatever you ate the night before and you're trying to like recover, you're probably not going to want to like go up the mountain unless there's a ski lift. And you might only go down a couple times.
yeah.
Nowadays you can kind of do all that stuff and like come out of the gym feeling better than you were when you got into it. And a lot of times like when you're training for like strongman powerlifting or like a strength sport, some of the times you're coming out of that weight room like you're not in a good place from where you started.
Oh yeah, and that was that was the other challenging part, where it's like, you go in and like expected to have a good session, and then something happens, and it's like, if you're not completely on point, then you're not having great sessions all the time. And that was, the other thing. Whereas now, like, yeah, I don't have great sessions. I probably have more great sessions nowadays than I did when I was competing, because not everything is like top level percentage wise. Like, I can come in and, like, if I'm feeling a little bit off, like yesterday, I started feeling sick. It's like I've got this head cold deal going on. And I was like, okay, like, it's supposed to be like 8 to 10 on like incline dumbbells for my first accessory movement. I was like, I'm not really feeling completely sharp. Like, what can I do? Well, let's change to 12 to 15s. Weight didn't decrease all that much, maybe 20% down. And I could have gone heavier probably looking back now. But like, I still challenged myself, and I actually still felt good coming out of it, because I still surpassed what I thought I was gonna do on that with that rep range type of thing.
Yeah,
And it's like these small goals, and it's funny just how a positive session completely changes my outlook nowadays. Where and it might and like, I can take more positives from it now, even if it's like a little less than I'd had planned. I can still take the positive, whereas previously, if I had to go less, it was like the fucking world was ending, and you know everything sucked for the next day or two.
you think being able to take some of those positives out and being able to kind of maybe not rationalize, but like adjust on the fly. Like, is that something that's come from not competing? as much and like not putting a precedence on it, or do you think it's come more so from just experience and like wisdom from all the years of training that you've already have?
I think probably the latter because like I could sort of switch on the fly like when I was competing, but it would almost be like the negative connotation of that was more, if that makes any sense. Like almost like, let's just say for instance, like, okay, I was supposed to pull, a triple at 700 on deadlift and I already pulled a double. Or I had to pull a triple at 680, 675. And you're like, that fucking sucks. I fucking suck. Whereas now it's a case of like, you know, okay, this wasn't exactly what I planned, but I didn't. Yes, it was a perfect example. Okay, I can't really do what I want to do today because I'm just going to drive myself into the fucking ground, but I still want to get some good work in. Let me do, this higher rep range. And then I came out of it being like, huh, didn't actually think I was going to be able to do that because I actually adjusted I was like, let's just see what I can do with these dumbbells. And then we'll decide the plan after that. And I went up to 15 reps and I was like, okay, that's a good mark. Like, let's see if we can hit 4 sets of 15 here. And I did like 15, 15, 13 or 15, 15, 15, 15, 13. And I was like, okay, didn't actually expect that. And it was, I think that ability to see the good in it comes from the years of training, but also comes away probably from not competing as much, if I'm honest, because the emphasis is off. But it's a really hard one to describe because like the emphasis is still there. Like, I'm not super happy that I had to change the plan, but I can still see the good in what I did. There's just not that negative connotation because that's the other thing. Like when I really sit and think about it now, like okay, you pull a double at 700 instead of a triple, or you pull a triple at 675. I mean, what is that? Like 25 pounds down on a 700-pound deadlift? I mean, what is even the percentage there? It's what, 3 percentage points, 3.5 percentage points, something like that. It's like you're operating at a 97% efficiency. Like, that's not that bad. Do you
Right.
know what I mean? Compared to the 700. But for whatever reason, in that moment, it's like the world's fucking ending.
I
It's
know that
weird.
feeling. I know that feeling exactly because it's a weird I've written about it. I've talked to other guests about it. I've talked to friends and training partners about it all the time. Like the amount like how critical you are, and a lot of times it's like negatively like critical when you're gearing up for a competition or training is that
Yep.
important, like for a specific goal, like a specified goal, like internally, like it's the end of the world, or like
Yeah.
because you would rather that than someone that's like very critical, but they justify like what happened, or like they make an excuse with it. Like you're just beating yourself up.
Yep.
And nowadays, like it's awesome to like see like already like how you put the positive spin on it and then how you adjust on the fly. And like you said, you're still challenging yourself and there's still a goal and there's still purpose behind what you're doing, but the purpose is a little bit more general. And it's not that like the purpose isn't that like less significant than like going in for a competition or trying to win OSG or like amateur worlds or anything like that. But like it's just not as specific. It's not you're not going in to like win at strongman. You're going in to
Yep.
use training like to be
I'm trying to win
better.
at life now,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that's really what it comes down to. And it's like, just the I think it's with an age thing as well. It's like, and again, like when things sort of add up, you start adding in these other variables where it's like, okay, when I was competing at my best, like what other things did I have to worry about? You know? Not a whole ton. Like when I was at my complete best, it's like, I was working in a nightclub or I was working at whatever job, and you know, you're single, you don't have to answer to anybody, you can do whatever the fuck you want. You can stay at the gym for 3 hours if you want, you can stay there for 10 hours if you want. Whereas now it's like, okay, family, actual job, other commitments, blah, 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 blah. Like for me, if I went and trained, on a Saturday, if I went and trained for 5 hours, that's my deal. And I think that's the part that it took me a long time to really get around some of that as well, where it's like, there's so much other things, and that's where it took me a while to slowly start to understand that you can't be on point for absolutely everything. You have to start sort of picking your battles a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, and that's where I think I started pulling back from strongman, probably around about 5, yeah, probably 5 years ago. Um, because like Cerberus was just getting to the point where I'm like, this has to take precedence.
Yeah, I think you said it, like picking your battles, and you can't prioritize everything because it makes nothing a priority. And I think that comes with experience and time, and then being more confident in what you want to put your time, effort, and focus into, and you have to say no.
Yeah,
And that's something that I think is a little bit harder on the front end for people to do, but it's also kind of easier because they're singular focused on something and they don't have as many commitments, like you said. But yeah, you just mentioned it too. Like Cerberus kind of took off, and it was a lot of time commitment and everything. Let's kind of like dive into that a little bit. Like kind of speak a little bit on like Cerberus Strength USA, like how you kind of got linked up with everybody to
yeah.
like actually get onboarded to the company, and then like what your role and position looks like within it as well.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, getting involved with it was basically like I just moved over here. I'd probably been in the States 4 or 5 months, and one of my best friends back home knows the owners, and they're like, "Hey, these guys are interested in signing you as a sponsored athlete. Would you be interested in conversation?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, look, definitely." Had that conversation, and then a couple of months after, they're like, "Hey, do you want to try and like bring this to the US?" I was like, "Yeah, sure. Like, why not? And it was a 50-gallon tote, and it wasn't full 50-gallon tote of wrist wraps and little some knee wraps and stuff like that. And then it just very slow progression. Just started promoting this stuff, and it got to the point where like it was a 50-gallon tote, and then it went to like a storage room or a storage room underneath like the stairs of my condo, and then it came to a 10 by 10 storage unit where I had some shelves and stuff like that in there and boxes. And then after that, it was like a 200 square foot office in the gym I opened out in Washington. And then it came to like a 3,000 square foot warehouse out here. And now we've got 10,000 square foot warehouse. Um, and yeah, like I'm in charge of all the US operations. Like everything that happens in the US comes through me type of thing. And I work closely with the guys at head office to, keep the company growing and developing different things. Do a lot of like content strategy nowadays, especially on the US socials and YouTube and stuff like that. Product education. Been doing a lot more of that more recently, and just trying to figure out ways to actually like engage with the community more and be a part of the community that I sort of grew up in.
No, that's awesome. That's crazy to hear too, like the inception of it too, like with you starting off in the US and like obviously like being new to the US too, and just kind of just getting sent off with a tote, just like, hey,
Yeah,
see what works. Like you're going to
yeah.
competitions, you're doing stuff like
And I didn't go to competitions for a long time. It got to the point where it was a couple of years in. I can't remember what year it would have been. Um, I think it was 2017. I went to national, like USS Nationals. Um, but I would do crazy stuff. Like when I sit back and think about some of it now, it's like, what the fuck, dude? Like you're a fucking night, like it's just ridiculous. Like I would drive everywhere. And it's only recently that I've stopped driving to a lot of them. Like I still drive to the Arnold when we go out to do booths there. It's I say now it's only 12 hours because which is still a long drive, but I mean, dude, I was doing stuff where um like USS Nationals was out in Detroit and I was living in Colorado and I straight shot it there, set up the booth, then the next day ran the booth and then came home. just straight shot home, like 20, 22 hours drives. Did that in sometime in summer, maybe July, August time. And then like 2 months later, I'm out there for another competition. And, OSG was down in Florida. Um, and it was the first year that I was not going to drive. Um, or I was trying not to drive to a lot of these competitions. And I shipped stuff down to Florida. And it got down there, no problem. And then the hurricane hit. And I had to drive. I ended up driving from New Hampshire down to DC, picked up an athlete, stayed overnight, and somewhere I can't Delaware, I think it was, or yeah, somewhere I can't remember anymore. And then we finished the next day, did the competition, did all that stuff, and then I straight shot it home from Florida to New Hampshire. And it's just how I did. And like when I really think about it, I'm like, man, you really actually like blood, sweat, and tears for the growth of the company. But I think that's also why I have the connections I do within the community, because a lot of them saw me growing it, and like I was always at these competitions, as always the face, always talking to people, always really trying to be invested and you know integrate into the community, because that's really you know without sounding like an asshole, like it was sort of my community first type of thing. And then to be involved with it from a business side of it was just even better.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like blood, sweat, and tears went into it, and I don't think that you would have quite near the same growth or like it would even took off like it did if you hadn't done those things. And it shows your commitment and investment to go out and do that stuff. And like it's kind of easy as for us to go do this and like talk just like with how social media has changed and like Zoom and all these sort of things, but
Yeah.
there's a different level of commitment and everything to go out and like make the effort, make the drive, go there in person, like be the face of the company like in the US and actually be there in person. Like you obviously you can't probably can't do that forever as it continues to grow and
Yeah,
build,
no.
but it's so crucial on the front end.
I sit and think about it now, and it's wild because like there was never like a thought process. There was never like, oh, should I do this? And like, no, you just gotta go and do it. And it's sort of like when I tell people now, they're like, you fucking did that? Like, yeah, dude, like, just that's what I figured I had to do. And it paid
It's
off.
Hey, it worked out. Like, yeah, you never know how it's gonna work out too, but
Yeah.
it's cool to see because like obviously like I've always followed Cerberus like growing up and like getting involved in like strength sports and like strongman, and ever since like I did my first competition like 2011, like it started popping up on my radar more, and being alongside like some other strongman training for it was always there. And like obviously when this started, like in 2020, like I was like, I reached out to you and I don't know how many times I harassed you in the beginning. I was like, hey, listen, this is you're the one company that like I have to have. I want you guys on the ground floor. Like I want to work with you. And like it's been awesome ever since because like I trust the products, I trust like the community, like all the stuff that you guys give back, education, like the outreach and all that stuff is what got me hooked and still keeps me like lured into strength sports and strongman. All the stuff that you guys do.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that. And then that's the thing for me. I think it's one thing to provide a good product, you know, but to give more, and like, that's where the real value comes from. And like there's been so many things in strongman that I can't emphasize enough how much strongman has given me for my life. Like without being morbid, after losing my dad, like probably strongman probably saved my life if I'm completely honest about it. Um, and to be able to like be on the other side of it and be like, okay, now I get to like, oh, you're doing this event. Well, hey, let me talk to you about that event. Let me talk to you about XYZ. And it's nice for me, especially now that I'm not competing. It's nice to still have that involvement and I don't want to say influence, but like some sort of influence within the community.
Yeah, having that involvement, like that's one thing, like that's why I keep doing this too. I think a lot of times, like you can get involved in coaching and you can get involved in strength sports, but just like you kind of have, and I know I have, like competing has like dwindled to not happen quite as frequently as quite as often. Like it's still there. It's still like training is always there, but like you're not going to be as the next person coming up is going to be way more invested or like what you were
Yeah.
in the beginning. And like I want to be around that in some sort of aspect, even if I'm not training, competing, like I want to be involved in it. And this is like a great way to do it. And like you said, for all that strongman and like strength sports has given you, like I think inevitably you just want to give back and
Yeah.
you want
Yeah.
to see it grow and you want to see what the next crop of athletes do. And I think that's like that's one of the awesome things that you guys have done a lot more recently too, is like sponsoring competitions, sponsoring athletes, like having the podcast like the Iron Edge, getting more people involved, like the education, like on the equipment and just training splits and all sorts of things. Like how important is that stuff and like what's kind of the direction that like Cerberus Strength is going with a lot of this education and community outreach that you guys are inevitably putting and investing time into?
I mean, I don't think there's any one direction because I think it's just a case of like, like we've always been a strongman brand, like the strongman's always been our bread and butter, or our bread and butter, and I think it's just been a natural progression where we like say OSG for instance, we um we sponsored OSG literally from the very first year, and now like we took over title sponsorship this year, so it's Cerberus Strength official strongman games now, and yeah, I think it's just a case of like for me, it's just giving back. Like I said before, like to have a good product and sell a product is one thing, but to be able to stand across the table from somebody or stand next to them and talk to them about XYZ, doesn't matter what it is. If it's something, if they can, if somebody can gain something from the knowledge that I have or one of our sponsored athletes has or whoever, I think that's where the true value in it comes from. Like it's passing on something that is invaluable, and doesn't have a monetary value to it. Because ultimately, that's how athletes grow. That's how the community grows, the sport grows. If I look back and think about all the stuff that I learned, in my, younger years, with different training crews in Scotland or training with people over here, if they hadn't put the time and effort into that, I wouldn't be where I'm at. Like wouldn't be even remotely close to as successful as I am in the sport. And I think that's where I'm at, where it's like, okay, I have a lot of knowledge with this sport, and I have the good fortune to be able to pass it back on because I'm still involved with the sport because of Cerberus. Um, and I think that's the responsibility I have to the sport as well. I think like, I could come and I could just take, but who wants that? You know? I certainly don't. I don't think a customer should want that. I don't think having a product rammed down your throat because it's good for X event with nothing else to educate you on how to use it or, whatever. I think I don't see the value in it. You know what I mean? Like I think for us, it's a natural progression where like we have a great product range. Even something like we filmed a video a couple of weeks ago about the elbow sleeves and knee sleeves. It's like we have four different styles of elbow sleeve. We have five different styles of knee sleeve. Why? What's the benefits of each of them? Why? I mean, what situation do you want to use, one over the other? Same with wrist straps that we just put out and belts and neoprene shorts and all that sort of stuff. Like, yeah, having a great product's one thing, but actually passing along valuable information is, I think that's where the value of a business comes in.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like you don't see a lot of people doing that. Like you get a lot of that information just from talking to training partners or new people in the gym and everything like that. But when a company is actually going through and creating stuff like just like your guys' tagline is like made strong for the strong. Like when you're doing those things and the people that are tried and true are testing that, and then you're not just like making another product and like putting a spin on it, like you're developing something that actually is going to be beneficial and have value, and then you're explaining what that value is and how to use
Yep.
it, why to use it, all those things. Like as you said, like natural progression, like that is like the natural way to do everything because you've hit it from every single angle. You've explained why you're doing it. You make a good product, like people are using it, like people at high levels are using. You're explaining it. Like, that there's nothing left to do. Like it's
Yeah.
almost like common sense at that point, and it's coming from reputable people that are been involved in the profession, that have been involved in strength sports and strongman, and continue to stay involved, even if it's not competing anymore. They're training, and they
Yeah.
have enough experience to back that up as well.
Well, and I think that's it. Like, I think that there's so much that can be passed on. Like like my wife and I are going to Scotland in, I'm trying to do the math here. 3 weeks? Yeah, 3 weeks. And as part of that trip, like it just coincided with Scotland's Strongest Man. So we're going to go and hang out at the contest. And I'm like, super excited to see a lot of people that, I mean, some of these guys I've not seen in, shit, I mean, 12 years, 13 years. I mean, since I moved, end of 2013. So I'm excited to just be around some of these guys that I, for actually grew up with, realistically, Um, and I think that's where, that's the benefit of the sport. If you're in it for a long time, like you can put so much back into it. That's not that you're not getting anything back for. And I think again, like I just think that's what we should be doing. That's how everything grows. That's how athlete, sport, community, perception of the sport, whatever you want to say, like how everything grows is the involvement of putting back into it for no financial benefit or benefit at all, just because you enjoy it.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's exactly the reason why people get involved in strongman too, like because they enjoy it. And like when you can give back and get back to the root of why you first started it, like that's like you said, there's no monetary value or benefit coming out of it other than just like the gratification of being still involved with it and kind of going back to that pure point when that pure like moment when you first started and fell in
Mhm.
love with it. And it's cool because it comes full circle and just like trainings change and like competing's change, like the same love that started the whole process is still there. It's just
Mhm.
showcasing itself a little bit differently.
Yep. Yeah, there's honestly nothing better than there's no better feeling for me like when I get to go to different competitions throughout the year and I see the same people competing at them and it's like how was prep for this? Like X Arnold didn't go great. I know Arnold didn't go great. How was prep for this? Oh, it was good. Okay, cool. Hey, come tell me how you did. And they come back and they, dude, I just fucking killed this. I'm like, hell yeah. Like that's cool. Like that's cool for me just to be involved, and like, yeah, sure, they might be wearing a Cerberus product, but just to have that community involvement is cool, you know?
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And that'll definitely be a fun homecoming, like seeing the competition as a former Scotland's Strongest Man champion, I think 4 times, right?
Yeah, they like that point in time they had like, a couple different competitions. So they had like one that's qualified for you for like Giants Live stuff now. Like, that's what it is nowadays. And then they had another one which was for UK's Strongest Man. And so I won UK's twice, and the Britons won once, and then I won the junior title once as well.
Yeah, it's some of the old competitions get a little murky, but it can't take away or discredit like all the hard work and like you winning. But the cool thing about that means even when you go back to look at the records, that means strongman is continuing to grow.
Yeah,
And
the nice thing for me was that based because there's such a small pool of guys, it was always the same guys. So it wasn't like one was watered down type of thing.
yeah, it's hey, you set a precedence for where it started and you got to run it for a good chunk of time, and now it's cool to go back and kind of see where Scotland's like those guys are competing now, like what the
Oh,
level looks
where
like.
it's at now is ridiculous. Like the Stoltmans just completely changed the fucking playing field. It was ridiculous.
It'll be
You
fun.
know, I'm really hopeful that Tom can, keep winning worlds and really put a mark on that and become like, the all-time winningest champion, beat Mario. So that would be cool.
He's making a statement right now, and
100%.
it'll be fun. It'll fun to keep watching all those guys compete, and I know you're gonna have a blast being back there. Well, hey, again, like any good training session, we got to end the show with a
Yep.
finisher. So I got four quarters, four questions, and we'll take it up the slopes for overtime at the end. But you can go rapid fire, or if there's anything else on there you want to expand on, feel free. But you ready for the first
Okay.
one?
Yes.
All right, first one I got for you. Biggest influence in strongman, and if it's not the same person, favorite strongman athlete growing up.
Biggest influence to me,
Yeah,
Sven Carlson, simply because of the intensity. Intensity, craziness, showmanship, everything. And he was one of my favorite strongmen growing up as well.
that's perfect. And both
And
together.
I got to meet him as well a good few times, like at Worlds, which is cool. Like actually have conversations.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah.
Awesome. Hey, well, I know you touched on a couple of these things, and I know family dynamic might change a little bit moving forward, but when you're not coaching, not competing, not working on Cerberus strength stuff, like what are some of your hobbies that kind of reinvigorate you and recharge you?
I'm a big truck guy. I like so much to my wife's dismay. I like uh I like working on my vehicles. So yeah, dude, like even if it's just general maintenance on her car, my car, whatever, that's sort of one of the things I really enjoy and get a lot of gratification of doing.
All right, I like it. Hey, so if you weren't doing what you're doing right now and like being involved with Cerberus, like being an entrepreneur and like CEO and owner of the company, what do you think you might be doing as a profession in a different like life?
It's hard to say because of everything that brought me to here. But I said to my wife a couple of times, said to my mother that um, as much as I wish my dad was still here, him passing was probably the best thing for me from a perspective of growth, long-term growth. Because I think if my dad was still here, I would have never left Scotland. I would probably be working a job, an engineering job that I didn't like, and I probably would be working in a club for enjoyment at the weekend, for a little bit of excitement, um, or still knocking my pan in at strongman. So I think probably a job I didn't like, and doing something to try and, you know, find some sort of happiness and excitement on the weekend.
I gotcha. Hey, so if you're setting up an ideal training day for yourself,
Mhm.
like you could take it back to like some of those heavy training sessions, like gearing up for a big competition, or you can do what it is now. But what music, what song is playing on the radio, and what is your favorite post-training meal?
It's funny because I just dug out my old iPod and I started using my iPod during training again because the phone was just distracting me. And I was like, oh, let me change this song in Pandora and all that sort of stuff. So now, I mean, it's the variety on that thing is ridiculous. Like it's like, you got Black Sabbath, you got Metallica, rap music, you know, God, I can't even think. It's so varied, it's insane. Um, if I had to think of like I used to listen to the Braveheart soundtrack when I was prepping for like Britain's Strongest Man in 2018. And the funny thing is, those were probably some of the most intense, like absolute fucking psychopathic training sessions that I ever had. And it was, I don't know if it was like the place I was in my life at that point or what, but yeah, dude, like I listened to that and I would be in a whole other fucking planet. So that was one of them. Otherwise, it's like traditional, Sabbath, Metallica, whatever. In terms of post-training meal, Chinese food, you know. That's my go-to for like if we're going out and anywhere. I'm actually really enjoying on the diet I'm doing right now. I get like one high carb day, like high carb day a week, and he has my post-training meal as um I get chicken breast, pineapple, rice, and corn tacos, and it's I don't know what it is about it, but I'm loving that right now.
All right, yeah, stick with what works for sure. Hey, so
Yeah.
last one I got for you for overtime. Like,
Okay.
what is either the first one that comes to mind or your favorite, like under the bar or competition memory that you've had in your career thus far?
Damn, dude. Um, probably probably the competition day at Giants Live North America in 2017. I went into that show not really knowing how it was going to go, and just missed qualifying for Worlds. It was like a perfect storm day. Everything clicked. Um, yeah, everything was like an insane day. So probably that as a full like competition day. Um, one event, trying to think. One event, honestly, probably I broke the Scottish axle press record at 1 year. Um, as an opening event in the rain. That was pretty fucking cool. Like everything could have gone wrong in that moment, but it was like no, there's no thought of it, and it sort of set my tone for the day. And I just fucking killed it all day long. So probably those two, if I'm honest.
I like it. I mean, in the rain with Axle Bar, I
Yeah,
mean, that in itself is impressive.
on a rubber stall mat. And
Oh,
we're not talking like spitting rain, we're talking rain, like Scottish rain.
oh
Like,
yeah.
it could have everything could have fucking went wrong in that moment.
You could have started with 135 and just like gone to pull, even with a continental clean and just watched it fly in the air in front of
Oh
you.
yeah. Yeah.
Damn. Well, that's awesome. That I know there's tons of things you could probably dig deep into, and obviously we could be talking for days. But I really appreciate your time. Like I said, this is something long in the making that I wanted to make sure that we always got you on. I appreciate your time. I appreciate all your support, all Cerberus Strength support, like throughout almost 5 years now
Yeah.
of 140 plus episodes at this point in time. So it's been awesome to work with you and have your guys' support. And I really appreciate your time coming on today. So thank you first and
Dude,
foremost.
no, thank you for having me. Like I really do appreciate you asking me to come on and be able to sit down and talk.
No, it's been awesome, man. Hey, well, for anybody that's got any follow-up questions, potentially for you, want to see all Cerberus Strengths, like accessories, like gear, equipment, apparel, everything that you guys got, all the education stuff. Where's the best place to kind of get a hold of you as well as see what they got going on?
For me personally, it's just gonna be Instagram. It's at KN Strongman. That's my stuff. And then if you just go to like Cerberus underscore strength underscore USA, that'll take you to the Cerberus Instagram, and there's links to the store and everything on there too.
Awesome, man. Well, like I said, Ken, I appreciate it, man. It's been great to catch up and finally get you on the show. So
Yep.
it's been awesome and definitely talk real soon.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
That's it for this episode of The Strength Game. Thank you again to this week's guest and to our sponsors. Be sure to connect and keep up with our guests at the links in the description below. Remember to subscribe to us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider to stay up to date on all future episodes. Also, check us out on YouTube and CoachO'Brien.com, where you can find all the video versions of these episodes, as well as show notes, episode schedule, and much more. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome and appreciated. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to join us next week for another great episode of The Strength Game.